Welcome back to the PEO Speedwagon Podcast. I am your host, Heather Applegate, joined by my friend Ryan Shapiro. And today we are lucky enough to have our friend Kenny Randle join us today from the Randall Group. So welcome and thank you for being here, Kenny.
Thank you, Heather. Thanks, Ryan. It's fantastic. I'm glad to be here.
We're excited to have you and hear some of your story. And before we get into PEO topics, I really just want to take us all the way back to maybe college. And I've been hearing some rumors about some USC track team and early athletics and even a professional career thereafter that. So can you walk us a little bit through your history in that part of your life?
Sure, I'd be glad to. I heard the show is very casual, kind of unplugged, and it's when you talk about going back to college, I have to put a disclaimer that you're only going to get certain parts, of that experience.
That's good. That's probably best.
Our list, we just lost like half the streamers. They're coming for
probably so, but you can squeeze things out of me though, Heather.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I know. Yeah. I mean, and Heather got this in the show prep, but I worked for Kenny for a long time as a sales rep and as a leader and things like that. So, but Kenny was always very above board. So if we can squeeze some stuff out of you here, it'll be a first.
I love it. The true tea behind the scenes. Right. I love it so much.
Yeah.
Okay. So take us back. Tell us about your life in professional sports and college sports.
Well, I take a step back from that because I actually was born in Missouri, the state of Missouri.
Okay. I love
Kansas. So I'm a Midwest guy, Midwest kid. Wanted to leave the Midwest because when I found out when actually schools like USC and those outside of the Midwest started recruiting me, I've always been that type that just wanted to take that chance. I guess I was kind of entrepreneurial even then. Okay, let's go for it. I mean, that's a great school. It was a little bidding war that was taking place between them and one of the competitive schools, UCLA, and I chose USC. I was really fortunate and felt honored and blessed to be able to go there. So I went there on a full football scholarship, but I ran track. And
nice.
But I was known for track, even more than football. So USC brought me there, and they really got two for the price of one. They didn't have to waste another scholarship. They said, wait, we can get this guy here and get him with two scholarships. So it's a pretty good deal. But it was life-changing for me to go there. It really was. I wanted.
Yeah. What was that like moving from middle of the country to West Coast?
Well, again, going back, I guess the way my mind works, I had even coaches that were not my head coaches, but assistant coaches thought that was like over my pay grade, going to a school like that. And maybe I need to stay somewhere smaller, somewhere local. And if you tell me that, you just already signed my ticket to go there. So I wanted to go prove that I could make it there. And if I didn't look at whether I make it or not. I just said, I'm going there, I'm going to make it. And my first year there as a freshman, we went 12-0 and won the national championship. And that was one of the greatest national championship teams on paper. If you just look at the stats and what they did. And I was a freshman and got a chance to be a part of that team. Got a Rose Bowl ring, national championship ring. And then we won one more before I left school. We won another national championship and then one in track. So my senior year in track, we won the national championship in track. And so it was real fulfilling athletically. And by the way, I actually went to school and I got a degree.
Oh, yeah. Somehow you squeezed in the education in and amongst all.
That was a negotiation too, Ryan. It was amazing. It was a negotiation. Well, I went to the dean of the business school because I was in liberal arts and sciences, and I knew I wasn't going to be a dentist. I knew that. I had scratched that one off my list. You're not going to take all the chemistry and everything you need. So I went to the dean. I said, listen, if I bring my grade point average up to this point, will you let me into business school? He said, okay, I'll give you a semester. He said, you do this by this time, we'll bring you in. That was my motivation, and I made to that grade point average. He let me into business school, so I graduated out of the business school with a degree in marketing.
Wow.
Yeah.
How'd you learn that you could negotiate like that? Like
I didn't.
even back in your childhood, did you know?
I really didn't. I was backed in a corner because I was, you're in college, you don't always know what you're going to be or do. Some people know that trail. I didn't. I just knew that I needed to do something other than the particular track I was on. And I went to him, and I just was bold enough to do it. And he agreed to it, and I went to the business school. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
So for me, this is informative because I had to negotiate with Kenny a lot of times. And usually all I would get was like a small thing. I'll give you, like, if I get just a point or just a small amount, but now I know where it all kind of came from, is where this negotiation skill came from.
You tell you, there are a lot of negotiations. It's too bad we don't have enough time. You know, you talk about where you get that from. I negotiated, the real big one, I negotiated when I went to Europe to run track. And I had a guy who helped get me a ticket. He was a world-class athlete. He ranked one of the top athletes in the world, sprinter. And he got a meet promoter to buy me a ticket to come there. Well, my negotiation was I didn't have a round trip. So I went to him before I ran at that meet, and I said, okay, I tell you what, if I win, I said, I want a ticket back to the U.S.
Please.
Yeah. And I want some money too. I want some money because the money was all under the table. At that time, you couldn't pay amateur athletes. And so it was under the table. So I negotiated my way back. You don't talk about somebody that was incentivized to win. I was incentivized.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you were landlocked. Your back was against the corner there.
And guess what? Once I got it, I said, okay, that's taken care of. No matter what happens to me while I'm here these next few weeks, I've definitely got a ticket to go back home.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Wow.
So I think that was my first negotiation in sales.
Yeah.
It reminds me of the Sandler sales book, like the story of the guy who would not bring enough he'd get his car into a parking lot and he'd not bring enough money to buy his way out, so he had to make a sale that day in order to buy his way out. That was your National Lampoon's European Vacation story.
Oh, it got even crazier than that because I had to help another guy get into France because he didn't have a visa. So I had to go to the chancellor and negotiate getting him into the country so he could run. And all he told me about was the hamburgers were $8. And I said, look, I spent 4 hours trying to get you into this country. So, yeah.
See, I told you we'd get off track. Now we're into geopolitical, sports, all the things.
We'll bring it back.
That's right.
Well, okay. So you were at USC, and then when you graduated from there, then tell us what happened next.
I got drafted by the Cleveland Browns. Believe it or not, the Cleveland Browns. And I went to Cleveland. I played the whole preseason. I did not make the team. They cut me in the last cut before the first regular season game. And that was a difficult one. So I always tell people, I kind of went back to Los Angeles with my tail kind of between my legs, kind of whimpering back to LA. And it was, and this is I have this in my book, When the Cheering Stops. My cousin, who was like an aunt to me, she said, what are you going to do if pro doesn't work for you? I said, oh, it's going to work. Don't worry about it. I said, I'm going to be fine. She says, well, just to maybe assure yourself, she says, why don't you interview? He said, once you get an interview, you said a guy from IBM you knew from school, see if you can get an interview. So I did all that, and that was going to come back around at another point in time. But, excuse me. But I left Cleveland, went back to LA, then the Dallas Cowboys signed me as a free agent, so I ended up going to the Dallas Cowboys. And I was fortunate enough that year they went to the Super Bowl because they had been to the Super Bowl the year before that. And I'm still in touch with some of those guys on that team. These guys are all pros, all everything, all NFL. But it's something to be said, Heather and Ryan, about relationship, about keeping relationships. I think that's what I emphasize to everybody today. If they're kind of newcomers into a business, you really need to work on your networking and your relationships because they'll be invaluable to you later. And that's what I did. I kept in good contact with those guys, but then I was at Dallas a year and a half, and then the whole Super Bowl piece. And then I decided, okay, what are you going to do? You're going to play some more football. You got a degree, you got this degree, right, from the business school. So I put it in play because for me, learning pro football, your job is only as good as you are as a starter. Because if you're not a starter, you look at your job's up every year. So it gives you a different perspective coming into corporate America. Because there you could see people leaving, coming and going, and their lockers were empty. So okay, I better get on this because my locker could be empty. And so it's real cold, but it's a business. And so I learned those pieces before I ever stepped a foot into corporate America. And I'm so glad I had that opportunity.
Well,
I
tell me
did.
about some of the leaders that you experienced there. Like, what were some of the leadership lessons that you learned when you were on those teams that you could apply later in the business world?
Well, again, I'll make this statement. Yeah, I've been blessed to be around uh, all my whole career in life, almost great people, uh, great organizations, and great causes. And that's just kind of how it went. So being at USC, for example, winning national championship, et cetera, was a great school. But I had a great coach. He was a history-making coach, Coach John McKay. And our team was almost like a professional football team in terms of the way we operated. We were very businesslike. We wore blazers, ties, the whole 9 yards on the bus. We wouldn't. Now we still had some cut ups, there. We had a lot of cut ups. These are college guys, college kids, right? But the way we managed ourselves was professional. So when we came out on the field to play, we didn't talk a lot of get in your face. We just went out and worked and did the job and won. And I think that produced a little, I wouldn't call it arrogance, but a level of confidence that we knew we would win.
Mm.
There were only a couple times a year we thought, well, there's a chance we could lose this one. But but it gives that level of confidence while you're out there and the way you execute. So I learned about how to operate at that level. So when I left that level and went to the next level, which is pro ball, it was no big jump. Uh, because I played against some of the greatest players. So I go, uh, Cleveland was a short drop, and he was a good coach there, um, but then I went in the Tom Landry era. So I went to the Dallas Cowboys with Tom Landry, and I would say he was even more far removed from his players. My college coach was a little removed. Coach Landry was much further removed because it was all business with him. But he was a great guy. He's a Christian guy. He had faith, servant leader, the whole 9 yards. But yet and still, he was great because he talked about how to execute. He was focused on execution. So I believe I carried a lot of that efficiency and execution and camaraderie of a team with me when I went uh, outside of sports.
Yeah, it sounds like that's the common theme between the two teams, at least USC and Dallas Cowboys, is we're here to do a job, we're here to do business, and we're going to come in, we're going to focus and eliminate the noise and just, focus on getting that result that we came here to get. Would you say that's
I
true?
think, Heather, that's kind of the hardest components, I believe. Not that you take it out of you, but having to wrestle back that competitiveness once you come into the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
You
Say
gotta
more.
kind of you gotta pull it back a little bit, because you'll end up competing against individuals and versus competing against yourself. So once I learned how to compete against me, it was a much better scenario versus trying to
Well,
compete against my person next to me.
yeah, and that's a tricky pitfall I think that a lot of people
Mhm.
get into is they're
Absolutely.
trying to climb the ladder and elevate their career. They're trying to knock out the people beside them, but that's really not the journey. It's kind
Mhm.
of personal best. Like, say more about your experience in that.
Well, I think you internalize it more and how you can focus it. For example, I share with and I share with athletes when I have a chance to visit with them. I do periodically, but most of my meetings are with, say, entrepreneurs or business owners or people in those professions, maybe ministers, etc. And I share with them that um, you you're pretty much the closest uh, thing to a elite athlete. So, for example, Ryan, you're doing your business now. You know, And I talk to business owners about, you're the closest to an elite athlete that exists. And they say, why do you say that? I said, because you're competitive. Okay. You sacrifice. Okay. Okay. You have to go without while other people have to have things. You're having to have employees, so you got responsibility. So all those things dovetail, those attributes all dovetail into just not running a business, but also the same qualities and attributes athletes have. So for me, I believe continuing to grow is so important. It was important for me because, again, no one gave me a roadmap on how to do this. I
Well,
didn't come from. Go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, no. I just think it's really well said, and it's an interesting perspective because one of the other things I think top performers do in organizations is something athletes are required to do, which is practice. Like practice alone, practice on their own.
Yeah.
I've always identified that in my time in many organizations, but particularly in Insperity, like if you weren't finding time to get good on your own, if you were waiting for that Tuesday training to be administered by your, district leader or what have you, you were not an elite athlete. You were not an elite performer because elite performers go get better on their own and then test it and practice. And so when game time or, discovery call or whatever you want to call it comes around, you're ready to roll.
Yeah.
And it is, an elite athlete is a great avatar for a high performing professional, whether that's sales, whether that's service or whatever it is, or a dentist.
Yeah. I first said that in Chicago. I had a meeting in Chicago a couple of years ago, and it was all business types there. And I didn't actually have the book finished yet, but I talked about this. The second book I wrote was called The Champion Mindset. And from that, I take the word champion and I take each letter in the word champion and it becomes a chapter. So the first chapter, C, is, as a champion. And then I take the next word in champion, which is H, which a lot resonate with, that's habits. Okay. So it's not competition, the first one. It's choices. Champions make choices and they don't make choices better than other people, but they make choices and then they go forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it gives someone something. Being a top performer, it's really hard, particularly in lots of industries, to define what that is. It's nebulous. It's
Sure.
There's no way to really describe it. But I think about PEO sales forces or sales forces agnostic. The first part is to get really good, and then the second part is to be a starter on that team. It's like, how do you be that person? It doesn't mean you are the cream of the crop across the country or even in your area, but with respect to your team that you interact with, like, how do I become the starter? How do I become the person who, when it's time, when, switching innings or you're coming off offense or you go on defense, like there's no doubt I'm the one walking on the field because that's who I am. And it gives somebody stepping stones to figure out how to become a top performer, because that journey is way too far apart and it's too hard to determine how to get there. But
I believe it requires a level of humility. And I think if you don't find it coming in, you'll find it along the way. Because a lot of people come into particularly the PEO space, they view it as being easy. This has got to be simple. I've had harder things to do than this, and I can attest to the fact how hard it is. Even when I started, because when I started was more trying to convince people that this was legitimate.
Yeah, tell us about that. And let's pause there because you joined Insperity at probably year 10 of PEO even existing, right? So you were setting the platform, setting the foundation for what this is and getting people to believe in it. What was that like?
I think it was some very it was nights without a strong bank account, that's for sure. So
yeah.
It's my wife telling me all the time, when are we going to start making some money? When are we going to make some money? And I'm trying to convince her, hey, just hang in there. It's coming. Just believe me. It's on the way. So I believe the belief level that you have to have that it can work, but then a greater belief is, can it work for me? I see it work for other people, but once I internalize it work for me. So I always got around people, Heather, that were already there. And I tried to brain drain them. I tried to get as much from them as they were willing to tell me. Uh, I went as far as recording them. So, okay, I want to record you right now on how do you go this phase of the discovery call. Go. And I took that and I developed my own training program. The company didn't really have an official training program, so I created one with the very first tape that I went back to Dallas with because I was hired at the corporate offices in Houston, and then I moved to Dallas. I thought I was going to work in Houston, and when I was told, "Hey, you're going to have to go to Dallas," I pushed back a little bit, but realized the opportunity was calling me. And so you go there, you go without, and the whole structure of pay. I went to join the company you were asking that question on a straight commission. There were no salaries. There were no salaries.
Mm-hmm.
I believe all the makeup of what I had done or hadn't done at that point, I really had a high level of desire. So my level of desire was way up here and wanting to have some success. And then it intrigued me of this business model because I had never been involved in a model like this. So it goes kind of back when I went off to school, when people said, you may need not to do that. You need to go the traditional route and stay here. I couldn't wait to go to Insperity. I couldn't wait to try something because, nothing from nothing leaves nothing. So for me, it was burn the ships and go ahead and go.
High risk, high reward.
Well, and I want to go back to that too, because you described it. People kind of come in with the expectation they're going to be really successful. I think some of that is confidence. I think some of that is predicated on the fact that when you understand what a PEO does, especially if you didn't know what it was, it seems like a no-brainer to a small to medium-sized business. Like, it takes care of all these issues. It ushers in economy of scale. It transfers liability, creates efficiency, all these things. And so all these wonderful things bundled up, and then Kenny or I or anybody else who's done it then takes that thing to a customer, goes, look at this solution that helps your business on so many levels. And then they say no. And I think there's that disrupt or that disconnection from how great it is to the challenge it is to actually take this great thing and insert it into a business. And people really struggle right there. And that's that mindset, because I've seen the people who struggle with it. It's an economic theory. It's the rational choice theory. If you need this and this is better, then you should buy it. And that doesn't happen. So people have to stay motivated. So, you've led large sales forces in Insperity. You've led, leaders of leaders. Like, what is your general approach to motivation and leadership when people are really struggling to make it happen?
For me, Ryan, and this is not just stage talk here, it's really self-talk. It starts with me first. As a leader, I just can't say, let's go get them, everybody, and I point the way. I actually have to get in the trenches. And I found that once people know that you're in the trenches with them, with conversation, with strategy, with execution, and some empathy, that you're not just leading with you're not leading with a stick. You actually take out your coaching whistle and you start coaching them. And that's, I believe, is so important to try to draw back on that whole coaching. Now, that takes time. That self-talk, you have to keep doing it. There was a guy in sales training many years ago. He still speaks occasionally. His name is Brian Tracy. And I was a big fan to his. And he said, sales is 90% mental. Guess what? Today, sales is 90% mental. It really is, because if you took all the considerations out, all the fears, all the hesitancies, all the excuses, whatever you take out of there, it boils down to it's a mental game. Sales is really a mental game. You still have to execute the attributes of communication, still have to be able to relate to people, still have to make people like you. But because it's not based on some of the elements, as Ryan was saying, that most people look at. Well, I've got intelligence. I've got someone who's really off the chart smarts. I seen that not work for a lot of people because they didn't know how to relate to people that had problems.
Yeah.
Well, what about some of those self-talk messages? What are the things that you have used over the years or found to be helpful in this industry?
Let me, without going too far back and trying to keep it relevant to now, which I still try to stay as relevant as I can. That self-talk is, I know something they don't know. I know I have something that if I realized that what I had was so good and was so powerful for their business, they don't know what I know. So I can go forth with a level of confidence and somewhat now. The reason I'm kind of buffering this is because the access to information today is so much greater and so much faster. I can immediately go and find something out that I need and be as knowledgeable as you are. And I still believe, yes, but that's the difference maker. The difference maker is I don't care where we are today with our digital ability, with our computer ability, with our AI. People still want to relate to people. And if I can still have a conversation with a human being and they can see my empathy and my desire to help them be successful and their company successful, they'll feel that. And it's got to be genuine. I really believe leaders, you said about leadership, you have to be genuine and transparent.
Well, and it's interesting too, because in this more now digital age where information is still accessible, we talk to business owners every single day that still have, one, no idea what a PEO is, but two, even when they said they've done research, like I've done some research, you start to dig into that conversation and they're like, holy, I had no idea what this was. Okay,
Right.
so this is what it is. And that's with the act, like more information than anyone could ever hope. You can go into ChatGPT or Claude and ask it. But for some reason, that list of things it does never truly describes the impact, what it's going to feel like, and also like where the capabilities can actually extend into an organization. And so then when you sit with somebody with a PEO sales rep, PEO leader, what have you, and you actually have the conversation, you're formulating their understanding, even though there's loads of data and insights about it out there. And it's odd that I'm sure there are other industries that are like this. I just don't know them as well as I do this one.
Sure.
But it's even with that, there's still that human element that is required to understand a people solution like a PEO.
Yeah, I think that what makes the great ones great that I've seen throughout my history being in the industry, and I'm talking about both leadership and sales leaders, so both management, leadership, and sales leadership. The sales leadership, the people that are really great, they're willing to take risk that others won't. They'll ask questions that others won't. They'll hold back what others won't hold back. I've been in calls with them and I've seen how they talk to clients, and they talk with a level of not just confidence, but with a level of, I'd say, challenge that business owner. There was a book written years ago called The Challenger Sale. And so to challenge that business owner in their thinking, because I believe that what you want to always get when you come out from any engagement with a business decision maker, you want them to say, wow, no one's ever asked me that. Wow, no one's ever challenged me like that. And that's that professionalism's got to emerge there because you can't be rude. You can't be, we'll get out and stay out.
Right.
But
Just a battering ram.
Yeah. And I've had people on calls like that with me, and I've had to excuse them out of the call because they just didn't have the skill set developed yet on how to handle that. So I believe it's all about today in leadership, creating partnerships. I see now today, just because the whole PEO broker marketplace today, I really believe it's a time whose business or industry has come. The reason I say that is people are looking for, years ago or several years ago, they weren't really looking. I just go back to maybe 4 or 5 years ago. People weren't looking for as much partnership as they are willing to have today. at one time they said, I don't need a partner. I can do this on
Mhm.
my own. I've got my staff. I've got this. But today, because of the quagmire of regulation, the quagmire of sophistication in detail, and all the things that you have to put your hands on, and people movements and attrition out of the companies, they're looking for someone that has the knowledge that wants to create a partnership with me and show me how they can help solve my problem. That's what I believe.
Mhm. I think you're very right, because I remember that time, even in calls with Insperity, we'd say this predates the period you're just describing, like, we're your partner. And that would kind of make people a little uncomfortable,
Hmm.
elements of the co-employment relationship, perhaps, just that level where the market hasn't shifted to what you just described, like seeking that partnership and solutions, that it was almost, as we would talk to sales reps, like, don't say that word because it can make
Hmm.
people feel
You're right.
uncomfortable.
I remember it.
Yeah. And I think you're right. Now, I mean, one, in this post-COVID environment, people have changed into how they need to lean into people. The more remote we've gotten, I think they do seek more of that connection and partnership through people. So there's kind of some forced adoption of that. But I think people have just evolved to the point where there is so much coming at them that they need to lean into expertise and trust and be able to forge those partnerships so they can make good decisions for their people, for their
It's
companies.
almost a reversal. It's almost like the landscape has shifted um, over time, whereby you could discount, say, the value or the uh, success of a something you didn't have enough knowledge about. For example, if I had a complete solutions sale and I had everything that a client would want, it's all done in house. I could sell that because they felt comfortable with that. Today, because of the systems that we have in place, and now that some of them have been validated and have shown success, now that equation has changed a little bit. So no longer, I've got a different equation now. The whole marketplace has changed. The whole ability to be able to get information has changed. Uh, I probably have a better, and then you have clients that will actually say, I don't guess I need all of that, do I? See, and so that opens the door for those who have strategic solutions that are not limited by the whole, but they are strategic components that they can get, and that's why I believe it's opened up the marketplace.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more that, you know, I've always felt that, you know, we've heard the sales axiom, people buy from people they like, and that still
Mhm, true,
exists today.
$100%.
But we've seen it start to either be superseded by, or at least brought even to, this concept of people buy from people who understand them. And that kind of speaks back to that partnership. If I understand you, I can have partnership with you. I understand what your needs are. And partnership decays real quickly if I sell you things you don't need. So whatever your organization's people operation strategy is, whatever you need around HR, what do you need around tech or benefits, if I'm bringing things in that don't align with that, I'm not I'm not partnering with you for
You're
the
right.
ideal solution.
They're empathetic, Heather, to what you bring, your story, but they're more desirable of your solution. Yeah, even when I go out to speak, people say, "Okay, that's a great story. Oh, yeah, that really moved me." But what moves them greater is that you've got a solution you can lead them with, and you've got a strategy that you can. So now they've got a strategy and a solution. So only thing left is, how do I execute on it? Now, how do I partner with someone who can help me execute, and I can trust them? How
Mhm.
can I trust them? Trust is huge today. Trust is so huge.
And I'm curious about how Insperity built that credibility, built the trust with its customers through how it executed its services.
I I'm glad you asked that, simply because culture is never. You can manage culture once you've established it, but that's a slippery slope. You have to keep building culture. You have to keep building the culture because things keep changing, people keep changing, their desires change, their goals change, their what they see in the knowledge worker today and what they want today. which are the now employees today. See, you can't be stuck in what was. You have to get involved in what is and be open enough to do that. So I believe that being able to deliver that in a way that it fits that culture. So we had a great culture. And not that Insperity doesn't have a great culture now. They do. But the question is, over time, over time, every great culture has to make adjustments. And what drew me to that company at the time was admin staff, right? What drew me there was the culture.
What was it about the culture that you loved?
I felt the people were honest. They were very they believed in service. Let me say it. Let me back up. Service. To do what they said they would do. To gain the client because they delivered on what they said.
Yeah. Isn't that easy? It seems easy.
It seems easy, but right.
Seems easy.
But what kept me at Insperity, because there were other companies that offered me more money along the way, but they couldn't offer the culture that I was in. They couldn't offer the types of people that we hired into the company.
So and in sales, you're having to sell that credibility and you're having to believe in what you are offering.
I can't tell you the number of people that once I had been managing for several years that would sit in front of me in an interview and they were making more money, but they couldn't stand the culture they were in. And most people today, all the statistics will weigh it out, that people leave companies because of the people they work for a lot of the times. Mm-hmm. That manager, that boss, that whoever, that leader, and so they'll leave. And they'll also stay because that's a real significant reason people stay places. And I believe you asked that question, it was the culture that drew as a culture that cemented, and then it created a belief system by the leadership. See, I really believe, going back to the leadership, I saw the leadership at levels where things were very challenging, but they kept leading. And sometimes you never know. There's an old saying that leaders are bleeders. And what I mean by that is that leaders have scars. And they were not afraid to let you see their scars. And I saw the leaders go through significant challenges, but continue to smile through them and lead through them. And that made me a better leader, because I said, if they could do that, then I need to be able to emulate that too with the people around me.
Modeling resilience for the whole team.
I think that's incumbent upon every leader in every company, that if they want to sustain the culture, and the culture is a really good culture, then how do you make adjustments to it? Because you got a different workforce today. You got a different marketplace today, and you can't stay the same forever.
That's right. Well, and speaking of today, so now you run the Randall Group, and so you do speaking on topics like these. You do coaching and development. So I'm curious, through that lens, as you've seen leadership change over the years, and now you're coaching leaders today, what do you see that's different and even better now than it was 20 years ago?
Well, one thing I see, leaders have access to better tools. There's access to better tools to get analytics, to be able to see trends, to be able to respond quickly to things that may take in several iterations to get how you wanted to see it, the data, and how you wanted to have it. So that's the analytical component of it. Today, I see a lot of very sharp leaders come in, but I'm finding the younger leaders coming into the space, they're very entrepreneurial in terms of their bent. I taught at Texas A&M University, a graduate school class in business sales, and they were going to be leaving out of the business school, and it was about 12 of them in the class. And I was really speaking on transition to transformation, how they need to transition from this environment. And when they get out to the real environment, here's what you have to look forward to and how you're going to handle it. And I just asked them the question, how many of you in this room, out of the 12, 14 in the class, okay, want to be an entrepreneur? And 5 of them raised their hands. Now, you would never have gotten that 10 years ago. See, they believe they can run their own show. They believe they can set their own course. And that's also what businesses today or small companies that are hiring them or hiring people like them, they've got to allow them room to grow. They got to allow. Here's a question I always ask business owners. Can you allow a vision within your vision? If you can allow a vision to take place in your vision, and not that they're going out and selling against you or being competitive against you, but once a person sees that they can grow within your vision and you let them, now you've got a key to being able to see them stay longer, and your attrition rate, it goes down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've got an owner.
Yeah, you said it. You said it. It's that partnership that I need to come down a couple of levels and get on the same page with my people, and be able to understand them better, and what motivates them.
Yeah, and when people can have ownership over their lane, it gives them that renewed energy. I think I've experienced this in my career. If I'm chasing someone else's dream, I have less motivation to get up in the morning because I don't have that ownership over what it is I'm building or going after. And when I can make it into my own within the frame of theirs, then there's new energy. I'm revitalized and ready to go tackle it.
Well, what you got to now, I call it the current generation of workers. To go on with that conversation, they're bold. Okay, they're very they have big vision, dreams for themselves because they should. Because if they go back and see what those who came before them, their parents and their grandparents, they saw their matriculation, and they have laid a foundation for them to want to go stronger and want to go better and want to be more successful. And if you curtail that by keeping them held down, then they're going to find a place they can go to that they can have that freedom, where they can express their views. Because I noticed this being in my position, where new people would come into the company and they'd want to go straight to the CEO and voice what they think should be changed.
Uh-huh.
The new worker.
That's different. Yeah. Uh-huh.
See, I was more rank and file. I'm like, oh no, you can't do it. Can't quite do it that way. But I think versus shutting the vision and the good ideas down, take them in and see how you could make them fit, and then align them with that person's, I guess, their blueprint that they have for success, and then see how you can help them become successful.
It's a really wonderful call out because when I started in the work world, I was more that kind of rank and file, and somewhere within it, kind of going back to something you talked about, I developed my own voice and vision within an organization, not doing my own thing, to challenge, like you were talking about, to press, to challenge, to kind of get creative. And that's where, I found a new gear, and I think I probably found a little bit of my entrepreneurial spirit. And so now that the way new employees are entering the workforce, if you are clinging to the past, if you're expecting to go rank and file, like you're trying to be a brick wall against a tidal wave, like it's just not going to work, and you're not going to get what you want. So empower these people is the message it sounds like you're giving them, is empower them through showing them your vision, getting them to buy into it, but allowing them to cultivate their own vision within yours.
Yeah, let me give you a sports analogy.
There we go.
It's personal, but I think you can relate to it. When I was a junior in college, junior, I was what you call, particularly in track and field, I was a elite track and field athlete. That year,
future Hall of Famer, right?
Yeah. But I'm glad you brought it up, because here's the next step. But I got a coach that began to work with me and began to know me and get to know me. I began to trust him at a level why I knew what he was saying was only there to help me. See, I convert that back to business. If an employee knows that you're there for their betterment 100%, they'll take your hard coaching. They'll take sometimes you got to get on them about certain things, but they'll receive it because they know that you have their best interests at heart. And I knew he had my best interest, so I was willing to tell him things I would not tell other coaches. And I went from elite to world class. See, so it works the same thing in companies. If you remove yourself too far from your people, your employees, and you sit up in the ivory tower, you'll never get to that place where you understand what motivates them.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you get up and come here every day? What are you really trying to do with you and your family? If you can learn that and they're serious and honest about it, then now you've got a way that you can hold each other accountable, and they see that they're not just a number. They're not just an employee number. They're not just a budget, a quota. They're more than that. You'll get the most out of them.
And that's kind of the theme for the whole thing. Just it's partnership. It's partnership with that leader, that person who helped you see that is a form of partnership, even when I'm hard on you, because we have partnership and that is manifested in my best interest is in you and what you can be all the way through sports, professional. That partnership just continues. You unlock new capabilities within people, new belief, because that partnership they're kind of wrapped in partnership to be able to get to where they need to go.
Oh, absolutely. I totally believe in it. Yeah, I do.
Well, I got one more question for you. If you were to go back into the PEO setting now, you were to walk back in through the doors, today's now your first day all over again, but we're actually in 2026. What would be the first thing that you would do?
I would gather whatever that group of people that were my direct reports or my team. It depends on what level I came back in at. I would really want them to really educate me a little bit, because I've got the leadership skills, I've got the experience, I've got all those things that I've got on my resume. But I want you to talk to me about, what are you challenged with now? What are your greatest challenges now? And then if I do that enough with enough people, I'm going to get some common themes. And I take those common themes, and now we work backwards. Okay, meaning that we start with the end in mind, and then we work our way backward to see what we need to do in order to be able to hit the end game. So even when we're looking at what we're doing every day, we got the end game in mind. And then I want to coach them to that level. I want to coach. One of the greatest dangers, I think, particularly, is coaching people that are very competent, very knowledgeable, and they're leaders too. You can tend to not coach them as much because they're coaching others. And leaders need as much coaching as those people who are not. The very top of the rung of the ladder performers, you're doing a disservice if you're not coaching them. Because sometimes it seems like they don't need coaching. They know it all. They got it all. But guess what? They still need to be challenged and pushed in a different way than you would push a brand new individual. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen first. I love that, is when you come in, you listen, you ask the questions, you get the lay of the land before you blow in and make change.
Well, one thing I didn't share that I believe, has helped me in this whole, I call it an evolution. I've transitioned about 4 different spectrums in my career. I went from sports, to corporate America, to ministry, because I'm a minister, and then to where I'm at now, thought leadership and authors and speakers. So all 4 of those transitions along the way have helped me to better understand people at a better level. I actually can see uh, the elements that individuals are faced with today, with their families, with their work, with the integration of them, with the chaoticness of our work world and our whole world. So I get a little bit different view of it. So I think it helps me better understand as a leader how I can help.
Yeah, that's rich. I mean, I feel like we could have a whole other podcast just talking about that. So maybe we'll have to have you back.
Well, if Brian invites me back, if I hadn't completely blown it, folks, if I hadn't blown this completely, then I'll be invited back.
You're invited back. Consider it done, my friend.
I love it.
Absolutely. Kenny Randle, part 2.
This is good. I really have enjoyed. Thank you for the questions. These are really great questions.
Yeah.
Well,
Isn't she great?
Appreciate. Oh,
she's great.
Well, shucks.
Yes.
Go ahead.
First, I'm gonna be real honest with you, Ryan. You were on, and Heather wasn't on. I said, I'm not gonna get a chance to see the great Heather Applegate.
That would be a big letdown. We won't ever let that happen to anybody. This is a disappointment.
Well,
thank you, Kenny.
I guess I sign off now, so I'll just leave the scene.
Yeah,
leave the scene. Hey, we'll see you next time. We appreciate it.
You guys
and we'll see you at part 2.
I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Thanks.